as you said, this could be euphemism, and it's agreed. I mean, heaven is a good place, but then heaven can also be put in a very awkward way, like it was.
It doesn't really sound like heaven.
Can I just add, please, a little bit? You know, I think it is very important for thought leaders and public policy people to chew those words, but not to chew them in a way that you spit out the words. The president was threatening a citizen in this country who's got a matter in court. The ball, you know, we just have zero tolerance for that kind of language, because that's the kind of language can lead to actions. The way this man was arrested, the way he was abducted, has got nothing to do with the security system in this country. Of course, the security system has said they have got nothing to do with it. But all Kenyans know that there is a parallel security force in this country, historically and today, that act in a certain way, and they have impunity on their side. That's not acceptable. The second thing is for him to, the statement that this man can leave the country is a direct reference to Asians not belonging to Kenya. That's just the fact of the matter. And the third thing is, you know, when you say you're going to heaven means you're going to die. It doesn't mean that you're going to Mombasa Beach Hotel. It doesn't mean you're going to have a cup of coffee. The artist there who's put the plane over there is called rendition. You can be thrown off the plane. This is absolutely, we have zero tolerance for that. And I think the president should apologize, and he should not say these things again. It doesn't bring this country together. It says terrible things about what our political culture in this country. It is thuggish in nature, and we should reject it by all means necessary.
Right, so they will be thrown off the plane, as you put it there. I think that's quite aptly, I didn't decipher it that way. So I can see the way it is actually...
The panel is being... The panel is being... let me use the word I used earlier on. We are being escapist.
We're being escapist?
Yeah, we are sugarcoating things. Yes. We are a democracy that is governed by law. It was within the president's right as a defender, the prime defender of this constitution, to say you're going to go to jail. So of the three choices that he gave, one is constitutional, it's democratic, and it's civilizational, right? The jail option. And that the jail option is through the court, and that affirms the rule of law. So on that count, the president was right.
Was it right also on the fact that because you have the Law Society of Kenya coming to the fore and saying, you know, you have overplayed your hands regarding...
I don't want to talk about
undermining...
I don't want to talk about the context, the broader context. I want to talk about the options that you have in a democracy. You have the option of the jail, but it is saying, us as a government, as through the prosecution and everything we have within our power, we are going to make sure that all corrupt people are behind the jail. That's okay, that's correct. But when you threaten people that you are either going to send them to exile, because you can go out of the country either as an exile, as a refugee, because your political rights have been violated, or you can go out of your country because you don't belong. You are an investor and you don't belong here. To the best of my knowledge, the vast majority of our Asians were born before some of our grandfathers were born.
They're Kenyans.
Yeah, not only Kenyans. If we're talking about Kenyans, they are perhaps more Kenyans than others. They were here in 1860s and so on and so forth. The final option is not debatable. It is not within your precincts, whoever you are within the law, to pronounce anybody's demise. Because we know you don't go to heaven alive. That we know.
Yeah.
Well,
and people have gone to heaven alive.
Moses.
No, Moses never went to heaven alive. He was buried.
I think the sentiment before we close this.
No, we're not closing. Can I just also hear from Ambassador Erastus Mwenche on this, because he wanted to comment on something regarding Uganda. You'd said.
No, I want to say sugar. I mean the sugar, but
the sugar.
Yeah.
Now, I wanted to ask before you go to the sugar, and I'd raise a question about undermining the authority of the courts, as the Law Society is saying. Is the president in this regard also correct when he says that some of his cases should be withdrawn so that he can deal with the cartel? where is now the complementarity that we see with the three arms of government and obeying and actually respecting that particular office of all the arm of the judiciary in this regard? Isn't he overplaying his hands?
I wasn't sure what Prof was saying, because I think we were very clear in saying that, look, our Bill of Rights allows us, the freedom to go to court and be heard. And so when you say you cannot go to court, we throw the case to court. What does that mean? Have you already judged him guilty? It is only fair that, of course, what we said, of course, was, we can understand because our courts take long to process these things, and so the president is worried. If you go to court, it's going to take forever, and therefore, in the meantime, farmers are suffering. All the issues that he raised, the industry is dying, the farmers are not being paid, but that is no excuse. That's why we said justice is never cheap. You must allow justice to take its course.
Yes. I wanted to ask, they've raised concern regarding national security. This is the legislators you've heard, that this is tantamount to national security. Do you, from your estimation, do you also espouse that particular notion, Dr. Kanenja?
I want to believe that the context within which they are speaking about national security, it is that perhaps those statements may be construed to mean that it's going to be a set of lawlessness and therefore not going to abide by the Constitution. And so the moment we start, of course, acting outside the Constitution, then, of course, that's a threat to national security generally, because you can easily inspire revolt and stuff like that. But I don't think we're going there. Now, the context in which I'm getting President's word is he made political statements to an audience that was not exactly us. In that audience, probably that was very good and well taken because of frustrations and the destitution they're actually suffering. But sometimes, of course, when you're making those statements, especially as a public figure, it's going to be construed and interpreted differently in other quarters. And that is why maybe we should not beat up so much on this issue.
Yes.
And we should just look at, understand the context, and, and people learn and they make mistakes, and sometimes people misspeak. But there is an audience he was speaking to at the time that I think was well received in that audience. But considering the entire history of Kenya and the place where we are today, of course, it was bound, to cause some friction.
But they are using that podium. Of course, there is a primary audience and there's a secondary audience when it comes to communication as well. This is what is meant to really also raise hesitation with the civil society, because you're speaking to these cartels, but you're using that medium that will speak to general. People will decipher message differently.
Of course.
Yes. Yeah. People will decipher message differently. Yes. But even as we're bringing it to a close, before I come to you, Hashi, I can see there's something burning. I don't know what it is. Let me just let it out.
No, I want to disagree with my colleague.
Yes.
I think there should not be any equivocation. No, there should be any contextualization. Any excuses made. President's dead wrong. And we need to call him out for it. We just cannot equivocate on this issue. It is a fundamental constitutional, moral, ethical, and civil and political rights issue. It touches upon our independence of the judiciary. It touches upon the separation of powers. It touches upon what the president can and cannot say. We cannot equivocate on it. The president is wrong. He has made a serious blunder. And this culture of yes men and yes women around the president encourages this kind of talk. President needs to sit down with his advisors and say, there are things that I want to say. How can I say it? There's another way of saying these things. And pass a message to the people you want to. But you cannot say that you're going to go to heaven, and you cannot say that you're going to, these things are not acceptable. And he has repeated them. He's repeated them many, many times. About these kinds of questions are the ones that have brought ethnic clashes. These are the kinds of things that have excluded people. These are the kind of things that has brought racism. These are the kinds of things that brought anti-Semitism. The shifter issue that I was talking about, Debal, is a deeply felt thing in the Somali community, that every time something happens, we feel that we're not part of this country. And the whole concept of trying to create a country in this nation in this country, is not to exclude others. So this thing of saying that utakwenda That's specifically targeting the Asian community. Whether what they were doing is right or wrong, the president is the leader of all the people in this country and he should not speak in this matter.
All right, so are we seeing a president who's really hands-on and wants to deliver on his promises and wants to clear all the way the blockades that are there, obliterate anyone that is on his way? Or are we seeing a hallmark also within the presidency of dictatorship? How then do you decipher that? Because it's very important to try and have a clear demarcation of whether we are seeing the hallmarks of a dictator that is, continuing to build up, or it's actually a man who's hands-on and he will do whatever he wants to make sure he delivers to Kenyans what he promised during the campaigns. And so if you stand on his way, he will deal with you. Because we've been for the longest time also decrying this sugar sector where we are. It's hurtling now towards the cliff and of collapse. We are talking about imports. It's a high time that even we have an iron-fisted man that will come and try and bring sobriety within that particular sector. Maybe it will take a man where you say there's a benevolent dictator to try and bring sobriety in that particular sector.
Yes.
You wanted to go, or
yes.
Professor?
Okay.
Let's begin with, we'll come to you,
okay.
Ambassador.
I think we have, the whole responsibility of nation building is a complex process. Reviving or making institutions work is one of those. You also have another responsibility to build a country based on its moral values and aspirations, the software of the country. Now, so if you're rebuilding a country and you overemphasize the hardware as if it is the end of everything, because the failure of Mumias and other factories not to work is part of our hardware. We have to get the economy working. But what kind of a country are we building? This is the big question. And I think at the heart of all this, what we need to remind our leadership, with all due respect, because we are elected by the people,
Excuse me.
and they have the mandate to govern. That's not in question. Is to remind them that there is a way in which you do things and even lose what you wanted to get. It is true. This country is corrupt. Some people are even mocking us out there that even grandmothers are corrupt. If you have seen those writings by Westerners writing about us, it is true. There is corruption in this country. There is also dysfunctionality of institutions. Some are just grounding. Kenya Airways, as a Kenyan, you sit on the airport and you make a choice. You're going to go with Emirates, Ethiopian, or Kenya Airways. When you are told Kenya Airways, you want to run away. Why? Because of inefficiency. Not in terms of that plane is dirty or it's not a good, or it's a risky plane, but it cannot come on time. So you will not reach your meeting. How it's working. There are also other issues of how we relate to each other, on what our values are, what we aspire to get from, on a single day. How do you judge your achievement in a day? So you end up finding that some of what we are talking about, frustration or no frustration, is supposed to be a value of our leadership. President